So the new thing from the right, I talked about this a bit on the Majority Report today with Emma, Brandon of the Discourse, and Matt Leck. But the new thing on the right is to basically go after teachers. You see with critical race, it's not new to go after teachers, but they have a new campaign to go after teachers with, and that's critical race theory. But they are now expanding that to now claim that all teachers are trying to defile their children with sex education and also by physically molesting them, apparently. Here is Matt Walsh on Tucker Carlson's show, where the two of them discuss how they would like to spy on children by putting cameras in classrooms. Now, let me pull up that clip first. Here's that clip.
Then it makes total sense that obviously we should want to know what our kids are being taught when they're in these government buildings. Maybe I think there are a lot of parents who don't want to confront or acknowledge what exactly they're doing when they send their kid to public school. You're sending them to a government building for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months a year for 12 years. That's what's happening. You should want to know what is going on, what's going on inside that building when they're there all that time. Now, I think there's the real reason why the left doesn't want this, and then there's the reason that they give us, which of course oftentimes are two different things. The reason they give us is that it's a privacy concern, or it's even a free speech concern. But first of all, teachers as government employees, in their capacity as government employees working with kids, they shouldn't get privacy or free speech any more than I want, a bank teller. If I'm making a deposit of a lot of cash, I don't want them to turn the cameras off and go into a back room and say, "Oh, I need some privacy while I do this." No, we don't want privacy in your capacity handling money. You send your
First of all, bank tellers take your money and go to a back room all the time. What are you talking about? Even your analogy sucks.
Dog to a dog boarder. They've got webcams now, so you can.
Whoa, I gotta rewind so we can catch that.
Capacity handling money. You send your dog to a dog boarder. They've got webcams now, so you can check in anytime. So why wouldn't we want that kind of oversight with kids? And I think the real...
Are you comparing your children to dogs? Does Matt Walsh understand what the issue here is? He thinks we don't want to put, there's some teachers... First of all, the idea that teachers are just spewing whatever they want in the classrooms is bullshit. There's curriculum that experts put together, and these are people who are educated. They're usually doctors who specialize in what the capacity children have to learn about certain things, so they can properly teach the proper subjects at each proper age level based on the maturity of the children. How they can take things in, how they can consume things, what are subjects they should know about at certain ages to match up with their development. The idea that teachers just kick down the door to the classroom and say, "I'm talking about whatever the fuck I want to talk about." No. And also, your dog has no right to privacy. No creeper is logging into your dog's doggy daycare webcam to fucking touch themselves to your dog. I mean, granted, I'm sure there are some weirdos out there doing that, but you realize the problem is the privacy of the children. There's not some secret hidden technology that can make sure you can only watch and hear your own children in a classroom of 30, 40, who knows how many nowadays, how many kids are in a classroom, in an average classroom. I know my son is in I know the COVID has sort of skewed. My son was in a pretty small classroom, but still we're talking about 20 kids. You don't understand quite what's going on here if you think your children are the equivalent to dogs and have no right to privacy. I mean, even by the law, and I don't really agree with this for animals because I think they should be seen as more in this, but even under the law, your dog is just your property. Like, this country doesn't look at your dog as a creature with a brain and a life of value in the same way it looks as a living, breathing human being. Just let's continue.
Reason, aside from the reason they give us, the real reason is that they don't want us to know what goes on inside that building.
Well, but
and they don't think, as you said, we have a right to know.
I mean, look, let's be totally blunt here. I mean, most teachers are great. I'm married to a former teacher. I'm not against teachers, but some teachers are creepy. And we know that because they want to talk to other people's prepubescent kids about sex.
Again, the guys who are advocating to allow adults to spy on children in their classrooms are calling the teachers they want to spy on the creeps. Let's rewind a little bit.
They don't want us to know what goes on inside that building.
Well, but
and they don't think, as you said, we have a right to know.
I mean, look, let's be totally blunt here. I mean, most teachers are great. I'm married to a former teacher. I'm not against teachers, but some teachers are creepy. And we know that because they want to talk to other people's prepubescent kids about sex in pretty detailed ways. You're a creep if you do that. I mean, let's just be totally clear about it. So anyone who'd want to talk to like a third grader about sex practices, don't you think we need to have a camera on that person?
I don't know what third grader is going to sex ed class. I remember my first sex education class in elementary school was in 5th grade. And very basic information. But what do they think happens in sex ed classes? The idea that like teachers are pushing, no, they're not pushing sex on kids. They're informing children of, first of all, their bodies. I mean, second of all, a major part of sex education, right off the bat, is the dangers of unprotected sex. I'm not even talking about pregnancy. I'm talking about STDs, HIV. And again, these are things that the teacher doesn't decide to just talk about these things. There's a curriculum. There's a democratically elected, as someone pointed out in the YouTube chat, school board. I mean, these aren't just things that any single teacher decides.
Yeah, and that's another thing where that shouldn't be happening at all, even with a camera.
I agree.
But it does happen, and so we should have that kind of oversight. I think if there's anything, you just think of it like this: is there anything that could happen inside a public school classroom that you absolutely would not want on film? And if you can think of something that could happen like that, it shouldn't be happening in the classroom to begin with. Whatever's
a child could have an accident. Very embarrassing for children. Children do all sorts of things. I mean, sometimes there are children who come back from the bathroom asking for teachers' help, and they're not fully clothed. If we're talking really young, like they're talking about 3rd grade, they want cameras in all these classrooms, right? We're talking kindergarten, right? Pre-K. Also, yeah, creeps could be watching these cameras and looking at children, including parents. There could be a parent in the class looking at a child who isn't theirs. You don't know. The idea that you only view the teacher as the only one who could be problematic is weird, in my estimation. Like, students are in school to learn. It should be a safe space for them to ask questions without worrying about being embarrassed or saying something inappropriate. And teachers, a good teacher is there to handle it. And a lot of teachers are good and able to handle it.
Happening there should be open for anyone to see, or at least, you could have the cameras in there, and parents who have custody of children could have, they could be password protected,
Exactly.
And they could have the password access. There are many ways of doing this that make a lot of sense, I think.
Again, we're talking password, like no one could hack into that or break into that, right? It's not like baby monitors are broken into all the time, right? And of course, schools are so well funded, right? Thank you to the Republicans and the far and the right wing, like Tucker and Matt Walsh's ideology, super well funded to put these systems up in every single classroom in every single school, right?
Your point is the best point, and I wish I'd said it. If there's something happening in a public school that shouldn't be on film, it shouldn't be happening in the first place. And it's kind of an unassailable point of reasoning, and I appreciate it.
We just did a good job of doing just that. Again, Mr. Tucker Carlson, whose number one issue right now is the NSA spying on him, allegedly. You are advocating for children to be spied on in their classroom. Matt Walsh was getting called out on Twitter, thankfully, for being, people were pointing out what a creepo some of these ideas he was pushing are. And I want to go to some of these because he doubled down on Twitter, but he made some extra points he didn't make on Tucker Carlson's show, which are, whoops, the wrong thing here, which are just as amazing. Matt Walsh continued, there should be a camera in every classroom and any parent should be able to access the footage whenever they want to find out exactly what teachers are doing and saying to their kids. I mean, you don't have the right to those conversations. You do not have a right to your children's conversations. You do not have the right to other children's conversations. As a parent of a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, well, the 2-year-old's not in school yet. So as a parent of a 6-year-old, I can tell you from my own experience, when the school even takes a photo of the class, like they're doing a school play or a school project or something, the principal, the teacher, whoever needs consent from every single parent of every student in that photo. And if they do not have consent of every student in that photo, then they can't release that photo, or they have to obscure the child in that photo by blurring out their body, their face, whatever. You can't do that easily with regularly running live streaming video. One parent would have to say no. And you would not be able to put a camera in that classroom if that was even what we got to. Aside from everything else, barring everything else we just brought up, in your scenario, where this would be a possibility. And Matt Walsh continues. Because he's being called out, so he just couldn't, he had to double down. He had to go all in, right? What I'm learning from Twitter tonight, cameras on cops, great. Cameras in daycares. Well, let's go one by one. Cameras on cops, great. Do you have unfettered live stream access to a body cam on a cop? No, you do not. When body cam footage from a police officer is released, it is a edited, curated video released many times, weeks if not months after the fact. just portraying exactly what the police decide to release. You do not have unfettered live stream access to view whatever a cop is looking at. We do not have first person POV video game shooter style video access of police officers all across the country. That is absurd. It's absurd. Number 2, cameras in daycares. Great. Well, cameras in daycares, we're talking a baby who is laying in a crib, who can't talk, I mean, it's not like there is some private conversation going on between the daycare provider and the baby. Cameras in dog boarding facilities. Great. Again, dogs don't have any privacy rights. Dogs aren't having conversation with the dog boarding facility. I mean, what? Also, your children are dogs. Great. Nice. What a great dad. Cameras in the classroom. Insane. Invasion of privacy. Orwellian. Correct. 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 This is the height of like the idea of someone spying on you. Are you kidding me? And then, of course, he's being called a pervert, so he doubles down. He goes down on this one. There are plenty of reasonable ways. Someone points out this would make sense in theory, I guess, but would this also not just give people the right to watch children that aren't theirs? LOL. It doesn't really work in theory, but I appreciate this person making a point that Matt Walsh addressed. There are plenty of reasonable ways around that objection, says Walsh. The camera could be focused on the front of the classroom to only show the teacher, for example. Many viable solutions. Ah, yes. Where did Matt Walsh go to school that the teacher just stood unmoved in front of the classroom? Are you, what a weird. And then he continues, worst case, it could just be audio. Like I said, not hard to think of ways around the student privacy problem. My child's words are a privacy issue as well. I don't want you listening in to what my child is saying, Matt Walsh. You creep. I have no interest in listening to your child and watching your child and watching any child. But apparently you want to listen at the very least to mine. No, thank you. No, thank you. I would not allow it. You would not have my consent. So your classroom video would be dead in the water if if my kid was in your child's classroom. If that was even in the cards. This is unbelievable. The party of free speech and civil liberties, right? No, big brother. We just want to spy on your children. Incredible. Incredible. I love the body cam cop thing. Unbelievable. Incredible. Fucking idiots.